market cap increase of the Colombo Stock Exchange, we've created close to 2.8 trillion of value. However, the sad fact is that distribution of wealth is amongst a handful of maybe 100,000 people. So that's the starting point to what we want to change. In terms of financial solutions, unfortunately, a vast majority of Sri Lankans are not aware of the capital market space. Improving the lives of all Sri Lankans through financial solutions is what we are trying to do.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Echelon Brand Finance 100 Most Valuable Brands in Sri Lanka 2025 edition. And today, the focus is on First Capital Holdings PLC. Joining me from First Capital Holdings is his Managing Director and CEO, Dilshan Wirasekara. Welcome, Dilshan.
Thank you. Very good to be here.
First, congratulations on getting the list.
Thank you very much. First
Capital is now, at the top of the financial services industry. You didn't get here by accident.
Sure.
And on this journey, you have passed many milestones. Can you tell us the key milestones of First Capital?
Sure. So we've been around for quite a significant time, Imran. I think 43 years to be precise, so over 4 decades. And for me, one of the biggest strengths that First Capital have is the experience we hold collectively as an organization, having evolved through different phases of economic growth, having seen different periods of transition, of chaos in markets, and of opportunity as well. And I think that's really the core strength that is behind First Capital, is that we've evolved through all of this. So the roots of the company go back to 1982, when we were formed as a money broking entity. At that time, money broking was a market intermediary licensed by central bank, sort of intermediating transactions between financial institutions. Very small market at that time. And thereafter, we evolved into a primary dealer by obtaining the first primary dealer license that central bank issued way back in the early 90s. And that actually was, I think, a sort of second phase of growth. And the company got bigger. Later on in the early 2000s, we obtained the unit trust and portfolio management licenses by the Securities and Exchange Commission and added on that offering to our investment banking forte. And a few years later, we moved into the typical investment banking advisory side of things, of debt structuring, IPOs, mergers and acquisitions. And today stand as a fully fledged investment bank operating in the capital market space, covering all aspects of capital market transactions. So that's the background of First Capital and how we've evolved.
You have a very interesting motto, improve the lives of all Sri Lankans through financial solutions. It's a very laudable motto, because I think we need to be felt by
Sure.
everybody in the country. How does that motto impact your operations, your stakeholder management, how you deal with clients?
Yeah. It's really the vision of the company. And it's something we are very passionate about. I think it's just not a set of words that are put there to look good. It's something that we truly believe in at First Capital. And our vision statement, along with our values, to me are the foundation on which this organization is built on. So improving the lives of all Sri Lankan through financial solutions is what we are trying to do. Right, at every stage of every business, we look at, are we really making that impact? And that's driven by also the 5 values that we have in place, which are integrity, performance-driven, respectful, collaboration and innovation. So in everything we do, we try to make sure that we tick the boxes in these, and are they really having an impact? For us, in terms of financial solutions, unfortunately, the situation in Sri Lanka is that a vast majority of Sri Lankans are not aware of the capital market space. And that's been really an issue because we've not educated students at primary level and secondary level about capital markets. So I think it's more ignorance than anything else. What we are trying to do is to change that and to make capital market products and services more accessible to all Sri Lankans, irrespective of stature. There's a false belief that this is for the elitist group of people, Colombo based. It is definitely not. And First Capital is trying to disrupt that market by taking our products and services out. So we've done a lot in terms of, I think the first pillar is education for us. So really informing the public of capital markets and the opportunities that are out there. But we've also done a lot in terms of the financial literacy aspect of trying to partner with schools, with universities, and really teach them about capital markets and how capital markets work. And also then enhancing the accessibility to those products and services from First Capital. So we are the only company, I would say, and I'm quite proud in terms of research, who make it public.
Yes.
So we essentially publish all our research. It's not something we keep only for our clients. It's out there in the public domain. Anyone can benefit out of it. Now digitally onboard all our clients, so you can, from any part of the country or the world, through a smart device, essentially start investing in capital markets through First Capital. And then we also offer all our financial literacy and our education programs. We run a program called Invest Ed, where we partner with all the universities and educational bodies, which are all done free of charge in terms of taking this message of capital markets to the broader audience. So that's how we try to essentially live our vision and follow the values and the principles that this organization is built on.
Excellent. I just want to elaborate a bit more on that, right? Ever since I think the financial markets were liberalized, one of the key aims of successive governments has been to create inclusive growth. Everybody benefits from it, but also at the same time democratize access to the markets. Awareness, yes, but also everybody can sort of participate in the capital markets. And how are you helping that part of it?
So if you take the last 12 months, Imran, and if you just look at market cap increase of the Colombo Stock Exchange, we've created close to 2.8 trillion of value. That's a lot of money. That is actually close to 10% of GDP, just in terms of the market cap increasing. However, the sad fact is that distribution of wealth is amongst a handful of maybe 100,000 people, right? So that's the starting point to what we want to change, right? We want, like you said, growth to be inclusive, growth to really trickle down to the lowest forms of society and everyone to benefit. Sadly, our capital markets are not as active or developed as in other parts of the world. For example, if you take India, it's probably 10x ahead of us. And we've seen how that has impacted the lives of people in that country. So I think capital markets are about capital formation. It's about taking investment savings to sectors of the economy that require it for growth, and to do it in the optimum, most efficient way. In Sri Lanka, a lot of that capital formation is currently today happening through the banking system. I mean, all credit to banks. They've supported the economy through independence, grown. But I think at this phase of growth, if we really want to go beyond where we are today, I mean, we've just caught back up to where we were in 2018, Imran, through the crisis. We are just back. So it's not that it's so rosy and looking good. But if we want to leapfrog from here and play catch up to advanced markets in the region, I think the capital market ecosystem has to change and have to be accessible for people, for businesses to raise capital. So what we are trying to do is take this platform through digital means, where businesses who truly need capital, be it equity capital, be it debt capital, can raise that capital through an unconventional form now, not the conventional banking form, a more unconventional form where the spreads and the cost of raising that capital is more efficient. It is effectively cheaper. So that's really what First Capital is trying to disrupt in the current context of the capital market space, and how we can really make then raising funds also for a business, right? Not just from an investor point of view, but for a business, for a SME, even the smaller businesses to use, say, for example, like crowdfunding. Right, crowdfunding will see the light of day very soon. The regulator is currently drawing up regulations for it. When things like that come, even a small startup business or a homegrown business can access capital markets to raise money, right? And you don't then need to have the books, the accounting, all the frills that generally go with it in place. You can do it faster and more efficiently. So that's what we are trying to build and scale up.
For First Capital, in addition to your regulatory licenses, there's a social license to operate. And in return for that social license, I think society expects you to sort of help in the country's economic growth.
Sure.
And to do that, I think we have a lot of plain vanilla products in the market, but I think now we need innovation in capital markets. How is First Capital contributing to that?
So that's one of our key values. Like I said, innovation is a key, one of the 5 values of us. And I think that's something that we always tend to focus on. We want to be disruptors in this industry. We want to be first movers in this industry. And I think over the years, we've always sort of moved first before others into certain spaces. If you take the mutual fund industry or unit trust industry in Sri Lanka, we are still the only fund that offers an ATM card for your investments. So we've brought in convenience as similar to a bank for your UT investments. We are trying to make that a transactional account where you have the comfort of knowing you have access to your funds, even we'll say at 1 o'clock in the morning or what some godforsaken time that you can't otherwise access it. We are the only company, and I think only the second in the world, who allows you to transact on WhatsApp. Right. There's no other financial institution that I know in Sri Lanka that allows you to invest or withdraw money through a WhatsApp message. So we've simplified it to that extent. World over is only a couple who actually use that as a channel. So these are just 2 examples of what I'm citing, but there are many more on the cards where we are really focusing on digital innovation and how technology can actually take our products and services much faster and much closer to the audience who can have convenience in doing it as well. So I think that's something that we will continue to innovate, continue to develop, and continue to invest in, Imran.
Great. Dilshan, you mentioned about the research heritage that you have. I recently sent a First Capital report to someone who asked me about where the Sri Lankan rupee would end the year. I said, well, the best report I can send you is the First Capital one. How are you building on that to reach regional parts of Sri Lanka and maybe even a little bit outside that? And how do you see that contributing to your growth story?
Okay. So we've heavily invested in research. We've scaled up our research outfit. I'm proud to say we are probably the only research firm in Sri Lanka who cover 3 major aspects of research. So we do macro, we do fixed income as a specialization. No one else does that. So we make calls on interest rates, on inflation, on monetary policy. And we also do research in equity. We do this, like I said at the beginning, free of charge. Every Sri Lankan has access to all of our research reports, right? So either through our WhatsApp channels or through the website or through the online portals, any Sri Lankan can access. We are now in the process of doing it on a trilingual basis, right? So if you looked at our mid-year outlook that we just held end of last month, we did it in 3 languages, not just in English, but in Sinhala and Tamil, simultaneously translated, a live transmission, right? I have not seen any research firm do that, Imran, yet, right? So we know that obviously the English-speaking minority in the Western province is outnumbered by the majority of Sri Lankans and also Sinhalese and Tamils who are not so maybe conversant with the language. It's not that you can't understand English, but certain technical terms may be harder to. So we are really on a path to try and democratize research within Sri Lanka first and have all our publications in 3 languages put on the platforms. So even if you can't maybe understand certain technical aspects in English, you'll have the Sinhala and Tamil versions that would. So that's one of the first steps. Our research is put on the website. So even an international investor independently can make assumptions based on our research that's out there and accessible to them. And we will continue to sort of innovate. We are looking at sort of ways of increasing the spread of our research reports by pushing it on, maybe partnering with mobile service providers or certain others who have a wider database to make it even more accessible than what it is now. And that's something that we'll continue to do, Imran, in the future.
Excellent. Particularly COVID drew, pushed people to sort of go digital. And now the investors expect very high levels of, ease in how they access their accounts, their research, and also how they can interact with the financial services provider. So how have you improved the client experience?
So I think, yeah, like you said rightly, COVID fast-tracked a lot of this for us. 2020 saw for the first time digital onboarding and eKYC being allowed by the regulator, because otherwise you had a stumbling block where the regulator wanted you to cite your client. You couldn't do a callback verification or things like that, which have now evolved. So I think today a good 90% plus of client onboarding is done digitally, not just at First Capital, I think at any financial institution. But then making the transactional ability more convenient is what I think a lot of them are now focusing on, including First Capital. Like I said, so we brought in WhatsApp, we bought ATMs, we bought in various other digital platforms through our portal that allow you now not just to maybe view your investments and see how they are doing, but also to transact, right? Move money, change investments, use it even in my view, I think the future is going to be that your investment bank is your partner for everything you do. So even in terms of merchant payments to anything can be done through one of your investments or a platform that is available through your investment banking partner. And that's really where we are aspiring to go. The next level is AI. It's a hot topic. Everyone is talking about AI. So we do have a few plans. It's a bit premature for me to discuss exactly what they are, but you will see AI complementing our digital offering that simplifies the process and helps people who maybe not have the technical comprehension of some others to be able to understand and break down investments into a more simplified form so that they can do more of it. I think that's really what we need. That will create wealth even at the grassroots levels, and I think take Sri Lanka towards prosperity, and that's really our aim.
Excellent. You spoke about this before, but about delving a bit more. Financial literacy, I think it's really poor across the country. Even people who have highly qualified in other areas, when it comes to financial literacy, it's very, very poor. What are your specific aims in terms of increasing that, and also tapping people who have not invested before?
Sure.
Who are curious, who want to get into it but are afraid to do so. What are your plans in that?
So I think on the education side, Imran, a big stumbling block has been the educational reforms that are needed. Now that's driven by government, and I'm happy to say that you would have seen the news. The Prime Minister is taking the lead in terms of bringing in those educational reforms. As part of those reforms, for the very first time, we would have the school curriculum, both at O levels and A levels, having two aspects. So you would have financial literacy as a core subject or part of a core subject for O levels, and you would have capital markets as a specialization subject at A levels that will be introduced, I think, hopefully in 2026. This has been postponed a couple of times. It was due, I think, in 2024, pushed to 2025, but now we are hopeful that it will start in 2026. I think that's the first step, so that then students coming out of school already have a basic knowledge in terms of these two subjects and what is out there in terms of capital markets. The second, which we are doing, is the program called Invest Ed, Invest Education ED. And that's specifically targeting the universities where we have partnered with them, and we run these financial literacy capital market products with these government universities. We are now looking at phase 2 partnering with the private universities, because why we thought of the government universities, the private universities do offer courses in capital markets, the government universities don't. That was why we sort of looked at that first. And we are getting a lot of traction. So you're even having a lot of interest from the universities to teach students and to partner with capital market players like First Capital in taking that education. So that we are doing that as a second stage. But I think broader than that, we are trying to be visible. And I think wherever possible in terms of media, print, TV, radio. I think just being present and sort of being top of mind recall for investors and building trust. And this helps a lot. So being in the top 100 brands listed in Sri Lanka would help an investor to recall what First Capital is, give them some sense of stability of the institution and trust to then start using the products and services. So I think your question was, how do you really get people to engage with your product, use your product? I think it's through all of these things done in conjunction with each other that then slowly but surely you'll see that. And we are seeing, if you look at the numbers of clients we onboard today, it's grown fivefold over the last 3 or 4 years, right? And it's common to the industry. I'm not talking about First Capital, I'm talking at. So people have a better sense of what the stock market is. Yes, equity is doing much better so far. For this year, returns are 25% on the SPI. Your fixed income returns are below 10%, right? Yeah. So people are slowly but surely getting more aware, and that's helping us to build traction. So I think all of these things put together will hopefully address the issue and make capital markets more popular as an investment tool to be used in the future.
Financial services industry is a very dynamic industry. A lot of things are happening. The expectations from the industry is also changing as we come out of the economic crisis. Now we're looking at growth, accelerated growth. What are your plans for the next 5 years, and how do you plan to execute them?
So I think there is still a lot of scope domestically for us to get a lot of traction. So we are focusing there, right? The low-hanging fruit for us still is within Sri Lanka. Like I said, if you take numbers of people who invest in capital markets through CDS accounts, we have, I think, about 1 million CDS accounts, but only 250,000 of that have some share or security listed. Of that, only 35,000 are active investors.
Really?
And active investor is defined by one trade a month. Right. So there are only 35,000 Sri Lankans who are considered active. So, it's a drop in the ocean, right? So for me, the first port of call is going to be Sri Lanka itself, taking this message and getting more Sri Lankans on board, right? We do hope of regional expansion. First Capital has already looked at certain markets in the region, and we are bullish on entering them, and that you would see probably in the second phase of growth that we target. But for now, my focus and our company's focus remain in terms of taking capital markets to Sri Lankans and try to expand our base here. It is still an underserved market in my view, and has a lot more that you can achieve here in Sri Lanka. But we do have hopes of venturing overseas as well.
Dilshan, Wirasekara, thank you for sharing the First Capital story.
Thank you so much for having me here.